Crepuscular. It's a word that means active at twilight, dawn and dusk. Human beings fall into this category. We are crepuscular. I wanted to do a painting talking about some of these attributes, so I'm going to step aside. Here we go. Basically, we have an elk. At one point in time, we had eastern woodland elk. Thanks to the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, we now have elk again in the mountains of Kentucky. So, very cool. I wanted to represent the solar and lunar elements in a twilight feel because we as human beings, we can go back to the African bowmen that we probably all originated from at one point in time, depending on which, whether you believe the out of Africa or out of Australia, whichever theory you're following at the moment, that we were following these animals. It's part of a lot of people's heritage, especially if you're European. You might not have been hunting elk the whole time. There's large evidence to suggest that around the end of the last ice age in Europe, people switched from grasslands further south to going after reindeer or caribou in the frozen tundra, and eventually your stags, your red deer, your oryx, the ancient version of the European cattle. If you're ever interested, look those up, they're fascinating. So in this one, I wanted to do, the moon, crescent moon illuminated from the side. Usually in religious art, you see it as the crescent at the bottom. Sometimes the goddess is standing in it. In this one, we have, the animal in a direction. We have a bind rune arrowhead. We have an arrow. A little bit of fletching. These are all made of bind runes. Bind runes in here, I am not going into the details of this. It has become too much of a tendency for people just to slap runes together and turn it into some sort of modern version of kanji and nonsense, and it's irritating to me at best. If you want to understand the runes, there's more than just the Elder Futhark. They do not spell out your name. They're not used to magically make things happen the way you think they are. You should look into people like Jackson Crawford, Matthias Nordvig. I often point to the channel Survive the Jive. I think that's great for ancient European history. In this piece, we have runic elements. We also have a evergreen. Evergreens have been considered a symbol of everlasting life in Europe for thousands and thousands of years. It's why we have our Yule tradition or Christmas tradition with the tree. And I could go into the whole idea, I've gone into it before, about large bipedal primates and this idea of bringing a tree inside and decorating it with food and comfort and a sun at the top. And I'm not making any judgment on anybody's belief system at all. This kind of suggestion to me, specifically with crepuscular animals and animals like deer, is that it's a general rule. It's not a hard rule. It's not a complete rule. It's a general rule that in the morning, deer go downhill to drink water. In the evening, they go uphill so they can basically put themselves in a secure position. If they've got a big barrier behind them that protects them, then they're looking forward. They're looking for predators. They're listening for them. They're smelling for them. This whole engagement with the natural world is something that some people have really started to fall back in love with, and I'm very happy about that. Because when you fall back in love with nature and you understand nature on nature's terms, not in some sort of weird anthropomorphic version that we've been sold in the last 100 years, but you understand creatures, animals, beings like elk on their terms, then you understand the world very differently. It changes your priorities, in my opinion. I wanted to do this because I see a lot of people getting back into their roots, and when they get back into the roots of hunting, fishing, of growing food, they immediately start to understand a deeper and more profound truth of nature and themselves than I think most of us in the modern world who are not engaged in those practices ever will. This is something near and dear to my heart. I think that it is because of this drive to engage in these things that I rediscovered things about myself, became comfortable with them, and started to understand the natural world on its own terms. Starting with profound stuff like eastern deciduous forest and moving our way up to regenerative agriculture with people like Alan Savory, Ian Michael Innes, Greg Judy, Joel Salatin, Elliot Coleman, but also, you know, Cameron Haynes, Steve Vernella. All these people, I think, are doing wonderful and amazing things that bring us back in contact with nature and not demonizing us. And I think more of that needs to happen. This is going up for auction on Brand Grand Farms this Sunday night. It will be up for 1 week. I will put the details on that page. This is oil on board. It's cradled board. And yeah, fun stuff. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me and check out my work. Peace.